It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Lakeland University head women's basketball and golf coach, Amber Peterson. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. Can you talk about your coaching experience and how you knew that you wanted to get started in college coaching?
Yes, I would say it's been quite a journey overall. I didn't know when I was playing that I wanted to get into coaching. I had several coaches mention it as a potential route, something I should look into. But I was kind of wavering between the potential of coaching and then going into something like social work. So I wasn't really confident until I actually came to Lakeland and worked as a graduate assistant coach. And that's where I was like, okay, yes, this thing is for me. I love this world. And that's how I kind of, I guess, got my feet wet. I also had the privilege to work as a student assistant at Augusta State, where I completed my playing career. And that helped me to get my feet wet as well and see that college coaching was a potential option. But that's how I got into it, and it's been a whirlwind since. But I'm so thankful for the opportunity to get to impact the lives of young women and obviously be around basketball and golf, which I absolutely love.
What was your playing career like at Augusta State?
Yeah, it was short because I only played my senior year there. Before that, I was at a different Division II school in Minnesota, and then I played at a junior college my first 2 years. So Augusta was awesome. It was short but sweet. I like to say I got to meet some of my very best friends. People who are still in my life today, and I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity. I also, had a great coach there, had great assistant coach, and then was able to be their student assistant for my 5th year as I completed my bachelor's. So I was really thankful to be able to wrap up my playing career and then also enter the coaching world, both at Augusta State. But yeah, it's a really cool experience.
What is it like being, of course, the women's basketball and women's golf coach at Lakeland?
It's busy. It's busy, but it's very good. I use the word blessed a lot, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But I will say, like, if you look at a school year, golf takes place in the fall, and obviously you go right into basketball season, and then that's like 5 months, and then right when basketball's done, you're full fledged into golf again for the spring season. So it really seems like there's no off season. Summer's obviously very busy for recruiting and things like that. But at the same time, I wouldn't change it because the teams that I get to work with, and obviously I love the sports as well, but the people I get to work with is really a privilege.
What is your time like as the women's golf coach?
Um, it's it's different, right? Golf is much different than basketball, so the team is much smaller. You're working with a different kid overall, but I love it. It was my first head coaching experience being the golf coach. I was named head coach about 5 years ago now, so I've been in that role for quite some time. We've kind of seen the program take off over the past couple years. Before we took over, we hadn't finished above fifth in the conference. So, we've had finishes of third and second, and we had an individual win it last year. So there's been a lot of success, which has been awesome. But even more than that, our group has had a ton of academic success. They crush it in the classroom, and a lot of them graduate early and then they go on to do really big things with their lives, which is the end goal. So I've really enjoyed the experience of being the head golf coach here.
What is your time like? I noticed that you are the director of sports specific. Can you talk about that and what your time is like there?
Yes. So that position has actually morphed quite a bit over my 4 years in that role, 4 or 5. It's hard to keep track anymore. But when I first started, the title was Director of Athletic Recruitment. But my role was almost like a hands-on recruiter for specific sports that didn't have a full-time coach. So I would work with the cheer team, the track team, whatever sport really needed assistance at that time. I was actually recruiting for those sports. After a year or two of that, it transitioned more into like a director role. So I was still had the same title, but my job looked different, and I was more of a guide, more of a liaison between athletics and the admissions office. And then 2 years ago, we added the retention component to the job. So then I became the director of athletic enrollment because it included both recruiting and retention. And that has allowed me to really kind of delve deeper into higher education and the offices across campus that really focus on recruiting. And I've really enjoyed having both aspects of that job be part of the job itself.
What is the culture that you have built for both the women's golf and women's basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question. Culture is huge. We preach it all the time. I think our golfers and our basketball players probably get sick of hearing about it, but it really is the foundation of everything that we do. I mentioned earlier that I've been the head golf coach for 5 years now, and I've only been the basketball coach for 1 year. So I really got to get my feet wet building a program's culture with the golf team first. And it was with that program that we really started talking about we're going to treat our players as people first, students second, and then golfers third. And that was something that just kind of set the foundation for how we view our student athletes and how we approach them, how we interact with them, the conversations that we have, and then also how they go about their business. They obviously love golf and they take golf very seriously, but at the same time, they know that they're here to get an education and grow as young women as well. So they know that those are the priorities. Another thing with the golf culture that we really tried to implement was the fact that it's a team sport as well. So obviously everybody looks at golf and they're like, it's an individual thing, and it does have an individual aspect to it. And that's kind of the beauty of golf is it has the individual aspect, but also the team aspect. And we try and make it more of a family type feel. And we don't want people feeling like it's just them against the world. So we really tried to implement that type of culture within the golf program. From a basketball standpoint, it is a team thing. Everything that you do, you have to be united. There's always 5 people on the court, but the people on the bench are just as important. So when I took over last March, excuse me, can't believe it's been that long. That's where we spent all of our time was in the culture aspect, improving our locker room, really, I guess, taking on the identity of a family versus this many individuals, just being in the locker room. So we developed 5 core values that we stand by, that we talk about constantly. Those 5 core values are honest communication, consistent optimism, focused togetherness, genuine character, and gritty action. So our girls hear about those things all the time. They understand what they all mean and they try to internalize those. And then we as coaches do that same thing as well. But as far as our basketball team and what I'm most proud of over the past, 13 months now, is the fact that our culture has completely changed and the girls have completely bought into it. Our incoming kids understand what it means to be part of the Lakeland women's basketball program. And we're really proud and excited about the direction that we're headed on the court, off the court, but especially from a culture standpoint.
That's so amazing. Can you talk about, of course, the 2016-17 and 17-18 season for basketball?
Yeah, for sure. So before I took over as head coach, I was the assistant here, so I got to be part of those teams. And we've had a lot of success here at Lakeland. Within our conference, we're the winningest women's basketball program. Winning is just kind of what we do, and the previous coaches and teams have done such an amazing job building that foundation. But there was a little bit of a lull there where we were kind of middle of the conference and struggling to get back to that standard. But the years that you mentioned is where you saw our program start heading back in the right trajectory. The 2016-2017 team was very veteran. There's a couple young bucks that contributed to that team, a really solid freshman class and sophomore class. But the key contributors, as far as like stats and things like that, were upperclassmen. They had kind of been through the ringer. They'd been the team that their freshman year that didn't make the conference tournament. And then by their senior year, they're out here winning the conference tournament, qualifying for the national tournament. And what I love about that team is kind of that, that they weren't this team that was expected to win it all. They just went out there. They believed in themselves. They believed in the girl on the left and their right. They put in work like crazy. They are proof that hard work pays off. And then they believed in the coaches and our game plan. So that was really cool to see. It was also really cool to see just the Lakeland community rally behind that team, and just, I guess, the way that they drew other people to them. It was really cool to see that take off. And it continued the next year. Even when that senior class graduated, they left behind a tradition of excellence and hard work. And that next year we had another great season. And we had a stretch there for 3 to 4 years where we were really steady and always contending for the NACC Championships. And that's where we're trying to work to get back to again. As we all know, it's easy to win once or twice. It's a complete other thing to win consistently and to always be a contender. So greatness is easy to get to, but it's not easy to maintain. But that's the goal for us. And those two teams will have a huge impact as alumni on our current teams. And they definitely have a lot to be proud of.
That's so amazing. What is, of course, the prospective student athlete look at whenever they go on an official visit for basketball and for golf?
I think every student athlete is different in what they're looking for. We always really encourage visits just because you can't get a good vibe of a place or a team or a coach until you're interacting with them in person versus just something virtual or over text or something like that. So we always really encourage them to visit. I think nowadays a lot of people they do it for the image, if that makes sense. So you'll see on Twitter, everybody posts all their offers and all that type of stuff. But, we would really encourage student athletes to find the right place for them, find the right fit. Don't go where this person wants you to go where you want to go. And don't go somewhere because they have the right name or they're the right division or whatever. Go to the place that wants you and you feel comfortable at and that you're a good fit at.
Of course, on the official visit, do you let the women's basketball prospective student athletes try on their jerseys?
We actually haven't done that. I know that's kind of a thing right now that a lot of people like to do, and they always get one in their locker, so they get to kind of envision that. And we have talked about having them try on the jerseys, though. I think that'd be really cool for them to see themselves in that jersey.
Of course, on the women's golf side, what is the visit look like on that side?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. The biggest thing is just really getting to know one another, whether it's us getting to know the recruit or, them getting to know us or our current golfers. Very similar to basketball in that way, as far as like building a relationship and kind of just explaining what comes with being a Lakeland women's golfer or basketball player and what they get to represent, but then also how we can help them grow as young women, as students, and then as golfers or basketball players.
How has COVID impacted, of course, the recruitment process for both the women's golf and women's basketball?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely impacted recruiting. It's impacted literally every aspect of our lives. But from a recruiting standpoint, the biggest thing I would say is it was really hard to go in-person recruiting. And that was, sometimes mandated by the NCAA, sometimes mandated by the tournaments, or sometimes by our own university. We weren't allowed to go out. So that's really challenging, especially from a basketball standpoint, because it's normal for basketball coaches to be sitting at tournaments every weekend of the summer, but we just weren't able to do that. So you saw recruiting become a lot more online, which has its benefits, right? You don't have to travel, you don't have to do that type of thing, but it also has its drawbacks. And I think that has been a challenge this year, not only for our staff, but for every staff in the nation from a recruiting perspective. But at the same time, you just kind of have to make the best of it. And we think that we still found the right kids for us and kids that are going to make our program better.
Of course, with those challenges, are you talking about like challenges where the players, you're not able to see them play, so you might not know if they have an attitude problem, if they don't win and stuff like that?
Yeah, possibly. I think there's a lot of things that you don't see in film, especially if it's like a highlight film, for example, for basketball. It's easy to clip things out and things like that. But I feel really confident in the group that we have and that we won't have any issues like that, thankfully.
What advice would you give upcoming future women's golf and women's basketball high school players looking to make it to the next level?
For sure. Part of me, would just encourage them to enjoy where they are now and really soak up that experience, give everything that they have to their current programs. I think when you do that, good things tend to happen. Coaches are always on the lookout, so we will find you. But at the same time, don't be afraid to reach out to us and, share your interests, share your film, do those type of things. And then other than that, I would say just find the place and the program that fits you. Don't be worried about if it's a D1, D2, D3, or whatever it may be. And don't be worried about what other people will think of your decision. I think, it's really easy to go somewhere because someone else wants you to or because it looks good on a Twitter post, but this is going to be your life for 4 to 5 years. So it's important that you really love where you are and you really love being part of the program that you're part of.
What advice would you give upcoming college coaches looking to get into college coaching?
That's a good question. First off, I would tell them it's awesome, but it's very, very challenging and very time consuming. The biggest thing as far as like getting a foot in the door is just making connections. So whether that's current coaches that you're playing for, or just other people at the school you attend, getting your foot in the door at the athletic department, making contacts is really the name of the game. It's all about connections. When I look back at my own personal journey, everywhere I've gone has been because of the connections that I've had. And those have all been a huge blessing and have led me to where I am today. So it really comes back to connections. Other than that, it's very similar to being recruited. You got to get your name out there, reach out to people that you're interested in working in, and be willing to hear a no, be willing to take that risk. Obviously becoming like a graduate assistant and gaining experience like that is very, very important and definitely something I would encourage as well.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the women's basketball and golf program at?
Yes, we have all the social media options. So I personally am on Twitter. Our team has Instagram and Twitter, so you can find both teams on those pages. But if you go to the Lakeland Athletics website, you'll be able to find the links to all those pages.
Thank you again, Coach Amber Peterson, for your interview and best of luck in your future.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Pearson, for your interview and best of luck.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.